is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel. Tonight we are jumping on for part 7 of Mentality with Dwayne Killings. And we have not only Coach Killings with us tonight, but we also have Coach Kimani Young from the University of Connecticut. Kimani, welcome to the Hoopheads Pod.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we are pumped to have you on, be able to get this whole conversation going with you and Dwayne. Dwayne, let's start out by having you just explain the relationship between you and Kimani, how you guys met, and just how that relationship has developed over time, and what a tremendous resource each of you have been for the other as you've gone through your career.
Yeah, I mean, although we over the last 2 years we compete against each other a couple times a year, he's family. He's a brother to me. I guess I'm dating myself now. Like 10 years ago, we met. He was coaching a kid by the name of Aaron Brown, and at the time I was working in New York City, working in the NBA league office, and I was transitioning to BU as an assistant coach, and we just kind of connected. We talked about the business, and it's funny, like that one conversation turned into like talking every couple of weeks, then it turned into talking every week, then it turns into talking every day. And it's not just about basketball, it's about life and trying to figure out this crazy business that we're in, laughing, talking, being frustrated. But I think the best thing is, somebody that's got your back. And even I remember this past year, and I think this is what our friendship is. We played UConn. It was the first league game of the year, and we're up like 19, and we lose the game. And actually, a kid I recruited to UConn, he actually won the game. He beat us. Like, he hit like 5 threes in the game. It's just crazy. And I'm devastated. I had to scout. The game means a lot. And I was walking to the locker room, and Kimani ran down, gave me a hug, and was just like, hang in there. But that's what the relationship is. It's bigger than basketball. It's real. And it's honestly how you get through hard days, with guys like him. But it's also, you got somebody support. So when you're at your highest of highs, you got a guy right next to you celebrating with you. And at your lowest of lows, somebody's picking you up.
All right, Kimani, let's hear that same story from your perspective.
I mean, listen, he hit the nail on the head. He's one of my closest friends, not only in the business, but just as a brother. We got to know each other through recruiting circles. It's been 12 years, and he was in college. I was still in grassroots high school, AAU, and I've kind of watched him ascend in the business. And, I at some point got in the business, and now we're, even more peers and, competed against each other. But at the same time, his success is my success. I always want to see him do well, and I'm super proud of him.
What are some of the conversations? What's the most recent conversation that you guys have had outside of obviously this podcast? But what's the most recent conversation that you guys had when you talked about? I know, Kimani, you got a chance to come up and watch Dwayne's practice at UAlbany. So what's the most recent conversation you guys have had?
Well, for me, I mean, we talk every day. So, I mean, literally, we talk every day. We're always talking about the profession, our programs. What do we need to do to get better? So most recently, we just been talking about, how we improve our programs over the summer. What does that look like? Like, where do we want to, put our focus? And he spoke to it. I came and watched him at practice, and I just told him, I'm like, DK, you can't do everything. I've watched a lot of coaches, make mistakes because they want to fix everything that's going on, whether it's their team, their program, marketing, recruiting. Focusing on a couple things that you want to be really great at. Put your time and attention and detail into it over the summer. So then those are things that you took care of, and then you can move on to the next things. But he's doing a great job. I'm super proud of him. He's got a great setup down there. I'm expecting big things from him at Albany.
All right, Dwayne, how hard is that? First-time head coach, you're coming into a program, you've had this on your mind for years that, hey, at some point I'm going to take over my own program. Now you get that opportunity, and suddenly, like Kimani says, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that I want to do, that I want to fix, that I want to get right. And now you start to say, holy cow, this is overwhelming. I don't know where to even put all my time. So how do you start narrowing that down? How do you get your focus? What was the conversation you had with Kimani after he sees that?
Well, I thought early on it's hard to get a rhythm and a routine. You just got so many different things coming at you, and then you learn so many things you didn't know. You got a plan, you got this vision, and I think it's excitement why you want to do everything, because it's finally yours and you want to make it yours. And I think the thing that's really tricky about this is that, like, every day you wake up with an agenda, and then two things come flying at you you didn't expect, and the conversations with Kimani, and really, like, when he decided to come up and come check us out, it meant a lot because I trust him and he knows who I am and what I'm trying to get done. So when he said that, he saw things obviously that I wasn't seeing. So that really helped me. And then the fact that he's been here on the ground when we talk, he already sees the vision and the place. And, we talk about challenges. They're not challenges, they're opportunities. So he knows the opportunities that we have in front of us. So his advice, it made me take pause, and have perspective. And it's funny, like, that next day, I actually sat out and wrote out just a bunch of different responsibilities for the staff, because I knew he was right. I needed to do a better job delegating. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges, and that people told me that would be challenges. And I think the other thing that's great, about the friendship and the advice is that, like, if they do something and I see it on social media, or he brings it up, I want more details. And then, like, I'll just hit him like, hey, what'd you think of what we just did today? And he'll give me a perspective that's valuable, because he's got his own clean lens of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to create. And to be honest, because of the vested interest, he's protected of it because he wants to see us do well.
Absolutely. All right, Kimani, what's one of the best things that you saw while you were up there watching, and you're just sitting there, you're seeing, all right, here's what Dwayne's doing. What's something that stood out for you? You're like, oh man, he's hitting this right on the head. This is exactly what he needs to be doing. What's something that jumped out at you from that perspective?
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job with connecting with that community in Albany. And I joke about it with them, but I'm like, you're at the fire department, you're at, donut shop. I'm like, where you going today? Like, you're riding, EMT, you're riding, like, you're voting, you're at the mayor's office. I'm like, but I make fun of him, but in a complimentary way. Like, he's doing such a great job connecting with that community and getting people excited about Albany basketball. I've worked at a place very similar to Albany. I was at FIU my first year in college, and it's tough. Those places aren't, they don't have huge fan bases. People are just trying to get through school and create a career for themselves. It's a hardworking, town. Like, they don't got time to be worried about what, the men's basketball program is doing. But when you got a young guy like Dwayne that's getting there, he's got so much energy, so much passion for the program, for the university, for the community, it forces people to take notice, and it forces people to, to support you. So I think he's done an excellent job of that. And come game time, you'll see seats in the stands, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
I think too, like, when he came to practice, the part that got me really excited is when I saw him grab a piece of paper and take some notes. I figured either we did something really good or we did something really bad. He was gonna let me know one way or another. So
yeah, no doubt about that. So when you think about I think, and this is something, Dwayne, that's come across clearly in everything that we've done to this point, is that ability that you've had to be able to go out and connect with people and to really just put your feet on the ground and say, I'm going to meet the people in the community, like Kimani expressed. I think that's come through clear in everything that we've done. I think about the conversation that we had with Charlie the other day, and he just talked about how, hey man, he's out there and he's putting the program in front of people and he's getting them to see it. And I think that there's no doubt that when the person who is in charge of that program brings that kind of energy and that kind of excitement, that's what really makes a difference. And then Kimani, to your point, there you are at UConn, which has obviously a storied history and national championships and all the things that go along with UConn basketball. And then you look at UAlbany, and obviously it's not a program that's on the same level. Now, we did compare Dwayne to Gonzaga the other night. I don't know if you listened when we had Charlie.
You did, not me.
I did, right. I did. Me and Charlie, we threw it out there. But nonetheless, obviously it's a little bit different. So when you guys have this conversation now, and obviously Dwayne was at Marquette before, which is a more tradition-laden school. So now when you start looking at the contrast between historically what the two programs have been, what do those conversations look like in terms of, hey, what is Kimani needs to do at UConn that's different from what Dwayne needs to do at UAlbany? How do you guys approach that difference between the two schools where you are now?
I think when we talk about, I think there's a lot of similarities in that you care about the kids, how you caring for your players, how you communicating to the parents, how you, like, I'll ask him, how are you dealing with this with Danny, right? So I can process for my own staff. I mean, those things don't change no matter where you are.
Right.
I think those pieces are always going to be consistent. I think the difference is, like, now when we talk about recruiting, how do you deal with an AAU guy that maybe he's not calling you, you got to hunt him down, right? You're like the third or fourth call back. You're not the first call back. What does that look like? Who are other people for me to connect to? Like, Kimani is so ingrained in New York City, and you gravitate to like the bigger programs, you know, in New York City for AAU. There's another layer of guys that have great players and great programs. To be honest, I've been spoiled. I didn't know who those people were. Kimani does. And I think connecting to him and having an appreciation for that. And then I think when he came to practice and he's seen our school, he knows the kind of kids that I want to coach and that can function and have success on our campus, both academically, socially, and all those things. Those things are important. And then, you know, on the other side of it, right, I still understand what he's trying to get. I worked at UConn for 2 years. I coached in the Big East for 3. I know what he needs to be successful. So when you're watching games, you're watching games. So, you know, it's kind of like, hey, you should also think about this guy, you know, and I think that's how you really help each other in this business, because you're an ally for each other.
Absolutely. Kimani, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's still, I'm at UConn. It's a different level, obviously, but you still want to be able to come up with creative ideas, you know, how you want to interact with your players, what you want to focus on every day, just things you're thinking about in recruiting. We have these conversations daily. You know, we're always bouncing ideas off each other, and that's what it's all about. I mean, it's a mid-major school, but I think it has tons of potential. You know, when you're a state school in New York, like, you know, that means something. It's a beautiful campus, easy to get to. You know, you can recruit the Northeast. You know, I think that he's got a tremendous opportunity there, and, you know, sky's the limit. So, you know, we always got to find ways to help each other. We won't play him though, Mike. Won't play him. Guys get high major transfers. He's recruiting his butt off. I said, no way. I'll support you from afar.
I thought I had him. I thought he was going to play.
You were going to get a shot. You thought you were going to get a shot at him?
For like a day, he said he would think about it, and then the next day he said, "No."
Good players, like 3 good players. Like
he made a quick 360 on that, didn't he?
Yo, I told him one day, I'm like, yo, you got a shot, and then he took some kid from Philly. I was like, now you're done. You're out.
We can't risk that, man. That's there's a challenge. There's a scheduling challenge, right, Dwayne? I mean, that's the reality. Is once you're a mid-major and you get good, then you start looking at, you know, Power 5 schools are like, they'd start thinking twice about whether or not they want to get and play you, right? I mean, that's a challenge, I'm sure.
Man, we don't have any players, man. We're just out here trying to figure it out. We need.
Mike, I tell him all
Oh,
the
he's
time.
sandbagging. I see what he's doing. He's got it.
Mike, they're called buy games. They're called buy games. Like, we're buying you for a reason.
Listen,
so
we just want opportunity, man.
I understand.
Come
That's good stuff. All right, Kimani, talk to us a little bit about how you built up those relationships inside of the grassroots AAU circuit and how that's helped you with what you do at UConn and with recruiting and just in all the stops that you've been at. Just talk a little bit about how you build and develop those relationships.
Yeah, born and raised in New York City. You know, I played in high school, played in AAU, played in college. Once I was done playing in college, kind of got back into youth development in New York. I didn't even consider coaching, you know, when I first got you know, my first career opportunities. I was a counselor at a foster care agency in New York. I worked for the Police Athletic League. Just wanted to be around young people. And then now you're in the gym, you're in after school programs, you're in youth leagues, and now you're getting back around the game. And that's when I said, wait a minute, you know, this is fun. I started being around basketball. Now you're combining 2 of my passions, which is helping young people in the game of basketball that I played all my life. And I saw a career path and, you know, got involved in high school coaching at Rice High School. got involved in AAU through the New Heights program. I hope that's not an NCAA violation that I mentioned them, but and through those, through those relationships, I got close with other AAU programs, other AAU coaches, built a network of people. And at the time, I didn't even know how it would affect me as a college coach. It was just what I was doing at the time. I was trying to create opportunities for the kids and families that were in my program, and just it kind of naturally progressed into getting into college. And now that I'm in college, I'm able to rely on those relationships that I built, some years ago, and it's been helpful.
Okay, and so then I guess the next question becomes: each of you obviously has built up your own network over the years separately, and then obviously there's a lot of people that you kind of cross-pollinated. But just talk about how, when one of you needs a connection with somebody that the other one knows, how does that process work as you guys connect one another to different people within the sphere of whether it's recruiting or just looking for a job, whatever? How do you guys share networks?
Yeah, so I think it happens a lot. I think the stamp of approval in our business is the gateway to the information or access to players or whatever, just getting access to being welcomed into a gym, which is, that's like a learned skill. I don't think guys fully understand that. Like, you walk in, there's certain people that have to say, okay, like, this is a guy we're welcoming in to potentially mentor and mold one of our players, high school kids or AAU guys. So a lot of times you're trying to connect the dot. I mean, that's what our business is about. So, if it's Kimani, is going somewhere where I've been or I've had success in recruiting, he might call me and like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Put in the call. And, right away, I mean, like, I'll stop everything I'm doing for him, and it's shooting a text message or a group text or a phone call to make sure that somebody knows that I'm validating who he is and what his character and what he's about. And at the end of the day, people just want to know you're going to care for their kids and you're going to be there for them for the good, bad, and different. And what you say, you're going to stand on and live by. And he's done the same for me. I mean, 10 times over. And it's been huge for my career because, like, I've been lucky. I mean, I've been able to go into places where a lot of people would say you can't get a kid to recruit a kid out of that community because, they only take care of their own. And I've had success in there because of people like Kimani, or just going in and being authentically who I am. And I think people gravitate towards that. And I think, again, we always know we have each other's back to make sure that, we can get the answers we need or have the success we need to have, whether it's, getting a scout done or trying to get a recruit.
Kimani, what's your take on that?
No, absolutely. I mean, listen, he described it perfectly. I remember being at Minnesota. I wanted to recruit a kid in Philly. He was at Temple at the time. He made an introduction that just, it was a pathway to success for me. I wound up signing a kid. The kid played for us, and that happens. Like he said, it happens all the time. You can pick up the phone and say, hey, I know, DK is recruiting your guy. Listen, I've known him for 15 years. He's a great dude. He'll take care of your son. That's going to get you past go. And that's what our business is all about. It's about relationships. It's about trust. It's about, building equity with people and kids and families and programs. And it's done both of us well.
What's been your discussion lately in regards to the NCAA rule changes, the extra year of eligibility, the transfer portal? Obviously, with you guys being at two different levels, there's impacts. You're going to be impacted maybe differently moving forward in each of your programs. And you think about how kids are utilizing the transfer portal and then how that extra year of eligibility impacts this year's recruiting and then maybe even a year or two down the road. Dwayne obviously coming in new. It's a little bit different than Kimani being already established and, kind of having a better feel for the personnel that they have on hand. But just talk a little bit about what your discussions have been around those two things, which are changes that are new to the game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, both of us, we have a similar perspective on how we deal with kids and families. For us, it's very personal. We try to develop very, very personal relationships with the guys that we recruit and the players we coach. And I think that's where it starts. Like the transfer portal is not a good thing. You know, it's not. You know, obviously there's situations where kids need a fresh start and it didn't work out, or maybe, you know, it's not what you thought. But there's a flip side to that where, you know, there's a small part of you that doesn't want to overcome adversity, right? And once things easy, and you've ran from challenges before. So there's a fine line there. But, you know, what I try to do is I try to attack it on the front end. Like I try to let parents know and kids know that, listen, this is not going to be easy. Like this is going to be tough. And, you know, the relationship we have, and I try to create a triangle with us, the kid and the parents. Like if we're all on the same page, he's going to be able to get through this. Like we're recruiting him at our place for a reason. And I think that's the way you got to look at it. Like we haven't taken one kid out of the transfer portal this year. And I think that's a little seducing to the programs that do that, because, you know, you're taking a kid and trying to, you know, you're trying to put them into your program where you've recruited kids. They've been in your program for maybe a year or two, sometimes even 3, but now you're just trying to add this piece to a puzzle that's already been formulated, and it doesn't always work. And I think there's some risks involved when you do that. And I know the way he wants to do it at his place. You know, he wants to build a strong program. He wants to recruit high school players, develop them, you know, give them experience, and now as juniors and seniors win big. And I think that's the way to do it. So, yeah, that's pretty much my take on it.
Dwayne, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what he said. I mean, I think, like he mentioned, I think we share a lot of the same philosophies, you know, in terms of how you build a program and the way you connect to kids and grow them over time. And I think, you know, the thing that I think it screws you up about the portal is you're building a team through a portal. When you recruit players and develop them through high school, you develop a program. You know, there's a difference. I mean, the culture piece is for me is vital to success. And I can't establish my culture by just constantly going to the portal for kids. And I don't know if that's the pathway to success. Now, you know, we benefited from getting a kid from the portal. That same kid, I recruited him to Temple. So he's going to help me establish my culture because I can coach him the way I want. We have a pre-existing relationship. That was great for me, for him. But, you know, we got the future for our program through just old school recruiting. And I think while people were looking left, we went right. And we got an opportunity to upgrade our talent in some unique ways. And I'm excited about that. I think, you know, I get it. You need to give high school kids and kids once they get to schools the opportunity to have some freedom, right? To find success, you know, because sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you make decisions and find yourself. But, you know, I think that what gets lost in all this is then now kids make a lot of emotional decisions. You know, at the end of the season, I didn't play enough as I wanted to the last 2 or 3 games. I'm out. And then now are they going to graduate? Are they going to find, you know, a fertile place to go to and to develop and people they're going to care for them? I don't know if those things are going to happen because you make these quick decisions. I think it's going to be interesting how, you know, our business grows, and the high school kids are going to get really hurt by it, you know, because they're not going to have places to go. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, it becomes something that we really benefit from at our level, but you know, it's going to be harder for high school kids to get an opportunity because we're going to go out less to see kids, and it's going to get tricky. And I think going back to what we talked about earlier, I just want to add this in there. You know, I think Kimani and I are constantly learning from each other. Just in this conversation, I thought he brought up something really good. He said we have to create a triangle, and I loved it, and I wrote it down. And we talk every day, and he's never said that. So I think, you know,
Kimani, you're giving him all your secrets, man. You're giving him all your secrets.
Share.
I mean, to be honest with you, like we've probably, I don't know if what we do is common, and I don't really, you know, I'm not, it's no secret. Like when I work at Marquette, I mean, Coach Wojciechowski, I talked about Kimani every other day, and it's probably like wasn't common, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're competing, but like I want to make sure he's successful. I mean, not necessarily on game day, but you know, his success is important to me. So we share ideas, you know, I share things with him because in the end of the day, like that's not going to be why UConn was going to beat us when we were at Marquette. I mean, that wasn't the reason, you know, it wasn't an idea that was shared, you know, it was going to come down to who was the best team in that given day. So that was never a worry for me.
Yeah, Dwayne, you said something really kind of resonated with me because Mike's often talked about. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but like your freshman year, you didn't play that much, right?
Yeah, I played maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes a game, maybe.
And so like in this day and age, you're that situation. I'm not saying that you would leave, but that would be an emotional decision that maybe you'd make. And I think obviously you're pretty happy with where you finished up at Kent State and your 3 years after that, but you had to kind of go through the adversity and know that you're playing with a bunch of upperclassmen, right, Mike? Am I wrong in that statement?
Yeah. So actually, like my freshman year, we brought in 7 scholarship players plus a walk-on. So I was the 7th, and I was clearly the 7th guy in a 7-man recruiting class. And so I kind of knew coming in that if I was going to get an opportunity, it was going to take time for me to, be able to do that. But by the same token, and this is a question that I wanted to ask you guys, is I don't remember, and maybe I'm not remembering something that did happen, but I don't remember my coaching staff at that time having conversations with me about, hey, keeping me engaged, even though I wasn't playing. And like we had a couple kids from that recruiting class that left. In fact, both my roommates from my freshman year left after their freshman year and went other places. But I don't remember the coaching staff having those conversations. So what kind of conversations are you guys having, or what are some of the things that you guys do to keep your players who aren't playing as much, as obviously everybody would like to play more? So what are those conversations like during the season with kids who aren't getting the kind of minutes that they want to play? How do you keep them engaged in the program so when the season ends, they're not left making that emotional decision to be like, hey man, I'm out of here. I should be playing more. So what does that look like over the course of the season?
Go ahead, DK.
For me, this past year, we had a couple of kids at Marquette. I mean, my thing was like, we got to continue to grow them. How do we develop them? How do we invest more in them? We got to talk more with them. I think, given this past year because of COVID, I mean, mental health was a real thing. And, we really tried to get those kind of resources around our players just to kind of give them an outlet to talk and to voice their frustrations. But I think what you can't do is you can't throw them in a corner, because that's where, those kids don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. So, after practice, investing with them, working with them before practice, watch film, again, give them hope, keep them ready, because you never know when the opportunity is going to come. This past year, we had a kid, a freshman, kid Osa at Marquette. And I mean, the kid didn't play much. And I would say like we gave him a lot of hope, and he worked and he worked and he stayed and he worked and he lifted and he ran. And, we got in a situation, a couple guys got injured and we threw him in a game. And, he had a big time and one dunk. And the excitement on his face, but he earned it, and he believed. And you got to keep him to believe every single day, because it's hard. But that same kid, like when the coaching change happened, reality probably says he probably leaves, but he still believes in the program and he believes in his teammates and he believes that that's the best place for him to grow because we taught him that. And then, Shaka did his thing, but you got to give him to believe in the process and see how the growth pattern goes, because all these kids want it on day one, and that's just not realistic. And everybody's got to run their own race. And I think that's a big part of it too, especially when you bring in a big freshman class and you got a couple guys that play and a couple guys that don't. You got to get kids to focus on their journey, not everybody else's.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about time. Like, like when you bring young players into your program, I like to describe them as your best recruits. Like they're the most important recruits that you have, because they're in your program and you have an opportunity to influence them and help them develop and help them get better. So if you got young guys in your program that aren't playing, like you need to be spending more time with them, whether it's on the court or off the court. I love doing pregame workouts with those guys, the guys that aren't play. You may have a light day after a game, really get in the gym and put those guys through tough workouts, because those are opportunities for them to get better. You got to invest in them, and you got to invest in them until they start seeing results. Like I love that. I love what DK just described. Like that kid, he felt that way about himself because he understood that the hard work paid off. And I think you gotta treat your young players in your program that way. we do a great job. I mean, we took over a program where we needed our young players to get on the court. And now in year 3, we've had some success. We've gotten back to the NCAA tournament. We got some older players in our program that have been here 3 years. So now it's going to be a little tougher. It's going to be tough for our incoming freshman class to get on the court. But, we're going to encourage them. That's what the summer is for. They got to get bigger. They got to get stronger. They got to learn on the fly. And we got to trust them. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always a challenge because we know that when you have 12-man roster and 15-man roster, and not everybody's going to get the minutes that they want to get. Not everybody's going to get the shots they want to get. Not everybody's going to have the role that they want to have. And so you got to keep those kids engaged. How do you guys engage with the circle around the players, whether that be parents, whether that be, in recruiting when you're talking to a high school coach or an AAU coach or somebody that's just a part of that player's inner circle who has that player's ear? What's that like in terms of building positive relationships with those people, which clearly you want to be able to have a positive influence on them because you know that they have an influence on the player, and you want the things that are going in the player's one ear from them to be things that aren't talking about, you should be playing more, or this, you got to get out of there or whatever. So how do you guys deal with that aspect of it?
I mean, the kids that I've been fortunate to recruit, I try to touch them, early and often, communicate to them about, how's this journey's going, try to see the blind spots, try to anticipate, what's going on. Like you can sometimes see, hey, we're going to go play so-and-so. This probably isn't the game for him. So try to get them to understand, okay, here's why this may happen, or call them and talk to him about, okay, here's why he had success, or when he has a big moment. Like I coached a kid this past year, a talented freshman kid, and it was like the third game of the year. I mean, they were all up in arms. Like, this ain't the plays, not happy. Then we play Wisconsin. He gets 18 and 8 and hits a tip in at the buzzer, and he's all over social media. And that's the high and lows of it. And it's getting them to understand that's the deal. That's the journey. You're not going to, but when he had his moment, the next game, you're not going to have 20 in the next game. It's not like you're not going to average 20 and 20. And that's the hard thing about it for the support group, but you gotta keep them close and help them understand. And you gotta help them mature in the business just as much as the player. In my role now as the leader of a program, I got to figure out what that now is. How accessible can I be to that group? How much of the assistant coaches deal with it, or do I want to be different and allow people to get a little bit closer? Because most head coaches kind of push people away. But my message, I've been actually traveling, meeting with parents, and I've said it over and over, what's best for me and what's best for your son is not more important than what's best for the team. And that's what it's really about. And, you can't convince me otherwise. We got to win games. We got to develop our program. And that's what's most important.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Mike, it starts in recruiting. It really does. I think that all the successful recruitments I've been around, from the beginning, right? If it's the kind of people that value the same things that you value, it's a connection, right? When you introduce yourself and then you introduce your head coach and your program and what you're about, your core values, when you see them light up at the things that you light up about, then there's a path to success. And then I think you got to be honest. I think a lot of us in our business, we're under a ton of pressure. We're trying to sign good players. We're trying to win. It's seducing. Wait a minute, I can grab this kid who's a 3-year starter at San Diego State to come to my place and fill in a stopgap or give us some protection against an incoming young player, or maybe a young player that was in my program for a year. I get it. I get it. But I think there's a part of you that has to trust what you're doing, trust the young people that you've recruited, trust the families that you've brought into your program, that's a path to success as well. And I think when you're honest with them about that and the expectations are set up front, then you're setting yourself up for success. I think that's just what it comes down to.
Dwayne, when you think about getting this head job for the first time, and you think about all the discussions that you've had with Kimani over the years, what is something that you shared with Kimani that is maybe the most surprising thing to you about being a head coach, and all the discussions that the two of you have had about, hey, someday when I get my own program, this is what I'm going to try to do. This is what I'd like to do. What's something that now that you're sitting in that chair, that when you called up Kimani, you're like, hey man, I did not realize that I was going to have X, Y, or Z that I had to do? Is there something that sticks out in your mind that kind of fits that description?
The hiring process stinks. No, because I think we're both blessed with like such unique relationships, and people come on the journey with you, and they think when that moment happens, they think they're coming to this moment with you. Like they think you already hired them, like just because you have a relationship. And then when you make a decision not to bring them on and make them a part of your staff, you only got 3 assistant coaching, positions. It hurts a little bit, and it scarred some relationship. That hurts. That's a real emotional piece to it. And I had Bruiser Flint actually told me, that's going to be the hardest thing for you. And that's the part that I think was the hardest. And I didn't expect that. Like I just kind of expected like, hey, I'm going to be able to do my piece. And there's a lot more politics involved in hiring your staff and managing people, because we're in a people business. And then I think I told him too. I mean, I got here, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but I'm ready for this job. And I said to him, he's ready to be a head coach. Because I know, like, I wasn't ready to say that until I got here, but then I started to see it and execute my plan. Now, there's another part to it where we got to play games, and not really get judged on it. But running the program and getting these things addressed and having a clear vision of how you can execute it, I feel very confident about that. And I know the conversations that we've had, we share ideas. He's ready to do it also. I mean, he's really, really good. And I know Danny leans on him. And I know that school and that institution and program understands that he's a major conduit to their success. And I think sometimes the way the business works and, all these different Zooms and calls and all that, it's like you need to prepare yourself to become a head coach. And you start you're like, am I ready? Am I ready? Am I ready? Well, no, you're probably not, but you're ready to do the business and run your program the way you thought of it and envisioned it. And now you got to figure it out if it works or not. But, I knew when I hit the ground, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I was going to go from, day 1 to day 60, whatever I'm at right now.
Kimani, I talked to Dwayne about, go ahead, share what you're going to say, and then I'll ask my question.
I have to, Mike, because it's been so exciting to watch that process play out for DK. Like it's been so, because like literally he had a plan, and this is what I'm most proud of him. Like, I hope this works for him, right? I really do. We don't know until we start playing games, but to watch him execute the plan that he had in place prior to even getting this opportunity has been the most fun thing to watch, right? Like everything that we talked about, everything that he, all the creative ideas that he's come up with over the years that he's felt so passionately about, and he's executing them now as a head coach. That's been the most fun thing to watch.
All right. So from your perspective, we talked to Dwayne about this already, but just want to get your take on it. What have you been doing? Like, how do you go about putting together your plan for when you eventually get an opportunity to lead a program? Are you a 3-ring binder guy? Are you a computer file guy? How have you put together your plan? What does that look like in terms of you collecting ideas and things that you want to do? How do you organize that?
Yeah, Mike, I don't work that way. And it's funny. I talk to people about this all the time. And I wrote an article a couple years ago for a good friend of mine at coachspeak.net, Rob Lanier, who's probably one of the people that's most responsible for me getting into college. But the title of the article was Be There Now. And my perspective has always been, whatever job that I was at, I wanted to put everything in my power into that job and be the best at it. When I was an AAU coach, my job was to create opportunities for every kid and family that was in my program. And I wasn't thinking about getting into college. I wasn't thinking about, getting into high school. My job was literally putting everything I had into this AAU program. And from that, I developed relationships that created an opportunity to get into college. And when I was at FIU, I wasn't thinking about, getting to UConn. I was thinking about how do we get FIU to relevance, right? They had won 9 games in the last 3 years. How do we get this place to a point of respectability? We won 18 games, and the next year, Richard Pitino was offered the Minnesota job, and he felt strongly enough about, my input and my impact at FIU in 10 months that he took me to Minnesota, which was a huge jump. Now I'm in the Big Ten. And when I got to Minnesota, I was just like, wait a minute, how do we get Minnesota to the NCAA tournament? How do we, create some consistency at this program? I never once thought about, I thought I'd be with Richard forever, or if, I never even thought about the opportunity of becoming a head coach, not at that point. And then, you get an opportunity to come to UConn. And when you get to UConn, it's all about, this is a program that's rich in history and tradition. How do we get it back to that? And now, 2 years later, I'm associate head coach and opportunities are coming my way. So I truly feel like my perspective is like, just do the best job you can at the job you have, and other opportunities will come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense when you start looking at, if you go and your eyes start wandering to the next place, you're going to end up doing a disservice to where you are. And I think anytime that you can be, it's that saying, be where your feet are, and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do in your job where you are. And then that's when opportunities are going to come. We had a guy that has been on the podcast. Do you guys know Joe's Decision? You guys know that name at all? No. Joe runs like a player development program out of he's in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And anyway, Joe always told us this story about being at 5-Star, and he was working at the 13th station, and he was out there sweating on the tennis courts. And, this is back in the heyday of 5-Star. And he said, he was a young coach, and he said he remembers Garf walking by one day and just stopping and looking at him at the fence, through the fence, and watching him for a couple minutes. And then at some point, the two of them made eye contact, and he said, Garf just nodded at me. And he's like, at that point, he goes, I didn't, I just knew that I had to work. If I wanted to do something, I had to work really hard in the moment in order to get noticed. And if I'd have been trying to get noticed, I wouldn't have. But it's just a matter of, he walked by and he saw what I was doing, and, gave me that nod of approval. And I think that nod of approval is kind of what you're talking about, Kimani. I got to do my job where I am. And if I do, chances are somebody's going to notice, and then they're going to offer me an opportunity to do something else. Dwayne, I want to go back, Dwayne, to what you said. It talked a little bit about the challenge of hiring your staff. And I know one of the things that's important to both of you guys is, as young African-American coaches in the business, and the responsibility that, I know, Dwayne, you've expressed that to me, and I know Kimani, as part of what you guys are doing with Coaches for Action. I know that's an important piece of what you guys want to do in the profession. So just talk a little bit about how you approach that role as an African-American coach. We know that there are challenges out there with being able to get positions like Dwayne was able to get. Just tell us a little bit about how you guys approach that piece of it in terms of building relationships with other young coaches that you feel like you have a responsibility to mentor and help to continue to grow. And then Dwayne, a little bit, I know you've talked about the pressure that, I don't know if it's pressure that you feel, but just the opportunity, the responsibility that you feel like, hey, I got to come in and do this job well because somebody's given me an opportunity. So just, I don't know who wants to go first on that question, but just tell me a little bit about what you guys talk about in that area.
Well, I mean, there's a pressure to perform for a lot of different reasons, but I know that if I'm successful, Kimani gets a job. I mean, and I've said it. I've said it to my team. I said it to my staff. I carry that on my heart, and I carry that into the gym every single day, because I was lucky to get the job. But there's a lot of guys that are maybe more talented than I am that haven't got their opportunity. So the more success that I have, that Kyle Neptune has, that Ben Johnson has, means that there's more guys that look like us will get opportunities. And it should only come down to being the best candidate, not because of the color of our skin. I mean, that's just how I feel. But I'm really excited for all these guys that have gotten great opportunities, like all representing great institutions. For my staff, I'm excited, man. We have a really diverse staff. We have guys from all walks of life. And the fact that I can give him opportunities is terrific. Now, at the same time, Matt Griffin, a kid that I coached in college, his dad was a head coach at Siena. He's dreamed of being a college basketball coach. I gave him that opportunity. But then, I got Dan Mahavapula, who's my operations director, who's, a young kid whose parents, got here from India. That's huge, because that's an opportunity. Now, it wasn't about that. Dan was the best fit for the job, but what he represents is terrific for my program, for this community. Diversity is an issue in our sport. Diversity is an issue in our country. It's an issue on our campus. I was able to address that in the small population that I can control and influence. That means a lot to me, but it's always going to be about who's best fit for the job. That's never going to be something that's negotiable for me. But I've told Dan, I've told KJ, I've told Danton Jackson, I've told Hamlet Tibbs, you guys got to execute for your positions and for your jobs, because you can't screw this up for the next guy. I represent Kimani Young. KJ Baptiste represents the next guy from Boston, Massachusetts, who wants to get an opportunity, who is a GA. You have to make sure that you do the job the right way, because if you screw it up, you're screwing up for a lot of other guys. And that's something that Coach Dunphy instilled in me a long time ago. We used to talk to recruits about it all the time, and we took chances on kids that were struggling academically. We took a kid, Ramon Moore, who a lot of people said he wasn't going to make it. It just wasn't going to work for him because he was from the inner city of Philadelphia. He was struggling academically. Kid graduated. He was an all-league player. He's making good money as a professional right now because we supported him. And what we told him all the time was, you can't screw this up for the next Ramon Moore. And he believed it. He understood it. So then when we recruited the next guy, he said, hey, if you come here, this is what these guys did for me. And I want to make sure that we now, whether it's through camps, through our Zoom series that we're doing, we want to give back to the game, but I'm watching to see who's on that screen, because I'm hoping that I can identify the next guy to be a part of our program. And I said a ton, that's how detailed we are in our thought process and every single thing that we do, because we have to protect this opportunity, because I got to get it right for Kimani.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, we're all about creating opportunities for each other, creating opportunities for minority coaches. That's an awesome thing to do. But at the same time, there is a responsibility that comes with that. We have to produce. This is a performance-based business. This is very cut and dry what we do for a living. This is not, there's not a lot of gray area. There's not a lot of room for error. We got to get it done. And DK is right. We all shoulder some responsibility in that. And that's what makes our relationship so important, right? We got to help each other. And it doesn't end with me and him. There's you mentioned CFA, CFA was awesome because, we're minority coaches in the same league that compete against each other twice a year. But outside of that, let's create some opportunities for our student athletes and represent them, represent their families, and, be a voice for them. So, it's definitely something that we gotta keep building on. And he's right. Those young guys that he hired, they gotta come in there and crush it. Right. They got to come in there and crush it. And I said that to them. I met with his staff when I went there. I wasn't going up there just as, hey, let's go hang out. No, this is important to me too. This is one of my close friends. I know what this means to him. You guys got a huge responsibility here. We got to get it done. So, that's definitely important that way.
When you think about the role of Dwayne, you as the head coach, and you talk about putting together your staff and building your staff, how do you look at you guys, I guess, as assistant coaches? How do you look at what you want from your head coach in terms of helping you to develop and become a better coach and helping you to advance in your career? How do you think about that as an assistant when you talk about the relationship that you have with your head coach? Are you going to the head coach and asking for feedback in terms of how am I doing? What can I do better? What am I doing well? What are my strengths and weaknesses? Are those conversations that you both had when you were assistant coaches? And then Dwayne, when you think about working with your staff now, is that something that you hope your assistants come to you and say, hey, how am I doing? Am I fulfilling the things that you want me to do? And how can I continue to grow and get better? Kimani, why don't you take that one first?
Yeah, for me, I felt like a head coach had so much on their plate. that wasn't my style. My thing was making myself invaluable. That was my my perspective. That was my strategy in it. Like when I got into college, I was wanting to get in college so bad that when Richard Pitino, gave me that opportunity, I said, listen, man, I'm gonna be an offensive lineman for this guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do everything in my power to make his job easier. I'm gonna take things off his plate. I'm gonna take initiative. I'm gonna be loyal. I'm gonna always have his back. He's gonna know that I appreciate this opportunity that he's given me. And I think that that's where you start. And as you get more experience and now you understand the business more, I talk about this all the time. I said this to DK and to his staff. Like, I think every assistant coach should be the head coach of something in your program. Like, we should all have something that we're the head coach of. We got this. So, coach, you don't have to worry about this. Like academics, I got it. You do not have to worry about academics. All you have to worry about is at the end of the semester, you're going to have a 3.0 like on your desk. That's it. I got everything. I got the discipline. I got the tough conversations. I have all of it. Somebody's got to handle your culture. Coach, I got it. Right? I got you. Obviously, you're the leadership, and I'm going to echo, your messaging, but I got it. Somebody's out of line. I'm taking care of it. Player development. I'm coming up with the ideas, what we should be working on. Offense, defense, like everybody on your staff should have something that, when the head coach lays his head on the pillow at night, he's like, you know what? He's got that, and I think that's a great place to start. And then, your coach appreciates you. I think that's what it all comes down to. Like, it's our job as assistants to make ourselves invaluable to our head coach and to the programs we work for.
Yeah, when Kimani said the head coach thing, I want you guys should be the head coach of something. I don't know if you said it to the staff or said it to me in one of our conversations, but I carried that right into the office. I loved it. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many things that he'll say or that I'll say to him that we can both use in our programs, in our own way. Like, I gave my guys responsibilities, and I said, I don't want to ever talk about it again. Like, I want you guys to run with it, do your own way, put your print on it. But I also think, in this position, I need guys to give me energy some days. Like, this is it's a big job. This is an unbelievable opportunity for me. But, I got to walk into a staff meeting after fundraising, planning practice, meeting with my AD, stopping with somebody in the hallway. I'm lucky. Like, I'm walking around campus, the soccer team asked me to take a picture. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but then you got to pivot right back. And when it's finally time at 2:00 to get to workouts, you owe it to those kids to give them every single thing that you got. You owe it to them. So some days I need to make sure that Matt Griffin or Hamlet Tibbs or Dan Jackson or KJ Baptiste or Dan Mahavapolo give me energy, because when I started my day at 6:15 working out, they don't feel the same pressure that I feel, or they don't have all the same phone calls or all the same things that they have to absorb in the course of their day. So if they give me that, that's all I need to make sure I can give these kids everything that I have, because I owe it to them, because I made a promise to them. I think those are some of the things that I think about. But ownership is huge. I think these guys owning what they're doing and really believing in it. And I've said it to them in recruiting. I know how I felt about the kids that I recruited, and I pushed them on Wojo. I pushed them on Fran Dunphy, because I believed in them. So I'm like, if you don't do the same things to me, then I'm going to waver. No different than if you think of a way to grow our program. If I don't really feel that your heart's in it, then I don't want to do it. So you got to really make sure that I feel that. And then, in terms of growing as staff, I mean, that's important to me, because I think I got to help them find their voice. I got to amplify who they are. Where we are, I owe it to them to make sure that I give them a platform to showcase who they are, because I think these guys are really good. And we have a saying in our program, high major is not where you are, it's who you are. I have high major guys. Nobody knows it. I got them. I promise you I have them. Now I need to make sure people learn that. And I don't want to lose them. But if I do, that's okay, because that's a great reflection of me and our program and of them. So, when they're on the Zoom with you, it's great that they're talking about our program, but I'm growing those guys as assistant coaches. We did a media availability for them. I'm growing them, and people don't do those things. And again, I'm not I'm saying this in the most humble way. I'm taking it a step further. I know I am because I know what programs have done. Because I've been at a really high level and a high point. I've had really good conversations with Kimani, and some things that frustrate us, I say I'm going to make sure that I don't do those things if I have an opportunity. I got it, and I'm doing it.
All right, give us an example of one or two things that you guys thought, man, programs should be doing more of this prior to you getting the job. What's one or two things that really you guys talked about a lot that you said, hey, we got to get this done if one or both of us ends up getting a head job?
For on our side, I always felt like, we have 4 years of a kid's life, and that's going to define who they are. They're going to become the average of the players in the locker room and the coaches that are around them. Like I was fortunate to walk on at UMass. Bruiser Flint kind of grabbed my hand at a really young age. When I first got my assistant coaching job at BU, like I was like, all right, how do you dress? And I just brought like the Bruiser Flint startup kit. I got some Kohan, a pair of slacks, and a polo. I mean, I just tried to emulate what I saw.
Right.
And, for me, like I think programs do a better job. Like we give kids a ton of money, cost of attendance, Pell Grant. They don't know how to manage it. Financial literacy is an issue in the grand scheme of things. Like kids don't understand a debit card, how to save money. They don't know, vehicles like Acorns to help them save money for their future. Like we need to grow their minds. If we grow their minds, we're going to grow them as players. Like that's a real thing. I think the other thing I think like we all need to do a better job is hitting pause sometimes. Like like we got to get the ball screen defense right. We have to get our fundamentals right, but we also need to make sure we're growing these kids as men. And, what are we doing to do those things? Talking about what's going on in the world, talking to make sure that their minds are just in the right place. They're absorbing a lot of different nonsense. And I think sometimes our frustrations about how they're performing on the court are connected to all the things they're experiencing in life. We just don't help guide them through it enough because, again, we got to get to the game. We got to get through the ball screen defense. We got to get our shooting programs in. Those things are all really important. But we also have to make sure we're growing these kids as men. And I don't think that people do that enough. And that's really important to our program. We have a leadership academy that we're doing for 6 weeks this summer. That stuff is paramount to me because it's impacted my life. I know I've impacted kids doing it in my own way as an assistant. We're pouring into these kids at an elite level because it means a lot to me.
Kimani, thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, Mike. We feel like we share in a lot of the same, a lot of those same ideas. Like the summer is so important. The summer is when not only you can become better as a player, but you can become better as a person, right? And we did similar things at Minnesota. We're doing similar things, here at UConn. I told Danny this year, like, we have a speaker series where we bring somebody in to come speak to our team every week throughout the summer, 8 weeks. We've had Maurice Claret, we've had Chris Herron, we've had just different people, social media people, just different people that can address different issues in young people's lives. But I thought this year was important for us to address leadership, like truly like teach our young people how to become leaders. And it's something that we're going to focus on because it's an Achilles heel in our program. We got a ton of young talent and good young players, but we don't have, that alpha male, that guy that's saying, no, this is, I'm the leader of this program, and when you have a player-led program, you have a good program. So, these are definitely ideas that we bounce off each other every day, and we're going to continue to do that.
All right, let's ask one more serious question, then we'll get into some fun stuff. Social media. How do you guys help your players to navigate the world of social media? Because we know that there's obviously positives to it, and there's lots of good things that can come from it. But we also know that there's a ton of negativity. I can imagine, especially Kimani, thinking about what your players at UConn potentially could come across online after a game that you guys lose or they have a poor performance. I know the kind of stuff that they can see out there on social media. So how do you guys help your players to navigate that, to make sure that they can utilize it in a positive way and maybe block out the negative? How do you guys approach that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we just the real conversations. I mean, they're pretty candid. Like, listen, personally, I tell our guys, I'm like, look, your social media should be about basketball, should be about your family, and should be about your faith. Those are the three things that your social media should be about. And you get into you get into a tough situation when you get outside of that. Because I tell them, once you put it out there, it's out there forever. And when you're a student athlete, especially at a place like UConn, you're on a big stage, right? You got a huge platform, and people are following you, and people are looking up to you, and you representing not only yourself but this university. You represent your family, the communities that you come from. You got to be careful. So that's just on a personal note. In terms of fan reaction and things like that you got to deal with. Hey, listen, man, it comes with the territory. When you decided to come to a place like UConn, you came here because you want to be the best of the best. You want to be at the top of your field. You want to be an NBA player. You want to be a big time college player. You want to be a professional overseas. You want to win at a high level. There's a price that comes with that, and you can't put any value into it. You got stupid fans out there that bet on the games or whatever, and they're pissed, and that's reality. But you're the one that has to walk into that arena every night and perform with millions of people watching. So understand who you are, understand what comes with it, but obviously use social media the right way.
Dwayne, thoughts on social media?
Yeah, for us, it's a vehicle to grow our program and raise awareness of it. It's a little bit different. Like like Kimani has a lot of eyeballs. I'm trying to get a lot of eyeballs. But I think we've created our own narrative in our short time here because we're trying to connect to the community. We're trying to showcase our players, showcase what we're doing because, as you guys said earlier, we're trying to grow the excitement for our program. And the way you do it is by telling your story. And I think social media allows you, is to tell it in your own way. And it's been exciting that people have gravitated towards it and noticed it. We're going to continue to, we're going to continue to use it as much as we can because I think it's a cost-effective way to showcase who we are, what we're doing. And I think most importantly, it's a chance to grow our players' brands, and that's really important at our level because, again, not all the time people understand it. Like they know who James Bouknight is, but we have really good players here in our own world, and we're trying to grow our world, and we're just focused on, UAlbany basketball. Now, I think here it's kind of similar, to UConn in that there's no pro sports in town, so people really pay attention, and the newspapers get a lot of coverage for our program for Siena across the street. So I think social media gives us a chance to kind of amplify our messages even more in our own way.
All right, before we jump into a couple fun questions to wrap things up, anything else on a serious note, Dwayne or Kimani, that you guys want to touch on in terms of your relationship and just the things that you guys have been able to share and help one another with throughout your careers? Is there anything else that we didn't catch before we move on to just some fun questions?
For me, I mean, it's not just basketball though. It's like life, it's been like decisions to buy a house, what do I buy my wife? But showing off my kids, but he's always been there. Like I could be on a recruiting trip 1 o'clock in the morning. I know if I call him, he'll answer, and we'll talk for 30 minutes, help me get through that middle part of the trip, text in the morning, yo, did you get there? All right. Get a win. I know I got a text message, lose. I know I got a text message. And when we were done for the season, they got to the NCAA tournament. I was rooting for him. That's just it's real family. And I think our business and our lives, it makes it so chaotic that you don't get a chance to spend enough time in person. But, you always know that person's got your back and you're at games and it's like, you pick right up where you left off. And we started like a Peloton group, through the pandemic. Like, we get through every situation, pandemic, social injustice. We got each other's back through it all. And we try to make each other better, and I think that's what a real relationship's about. But I think, the relationship that we have and that I think our circle has in our business is really unique. And, you know, we pull from that all the time. And I love him to death because he's helped me get to where I am and get through other moments in my life.
Nah, I mean, listen, he hit the nail on the head. You know, this is a true brotherhood, you know, between me and DK. This isn't about basketball. This isn't about, you know, having a good time. This is about, you know, two people that really connected on a personal level, right? And you know, he knew my story, he knew my plight, he knew everything I was doing prior to getting to college. He knows the strengths, my weaknesses, he knows all the struggles. And when you have somebody that's a peer that you can share those things with and get through tough times with, you know, it lends to an awesome relationship. So I appreciate him. He's you know, very important to me and a huge part of my success as well.
Absolutely. All right. We are approaching 12:20 a.m. So I don't want to go too much longer with you guys. I know the wake up call is coming early for all of us at some point. So whether it's because of our kids or our job, but nonetheless, let's go with this question. What is your favorite all-time college team from when you were a kid that you just love to watch? Who was your all-time favorite college team? Dwayne, we'll throw it to you first on this one.
It's hard not to say like the 1996 UMass Minutemen. Like I grew up in Amherst, kind of time stopped in that town at the time. A lot of the things that we're doing for our program, you know, it's just stuff I experienced as Coach Calipari was building it up. Obviously, it's completely different what he did and where we are right now. But just watching, you know, him grow that program to that moment where you got Marcus Camby, Edgar Padilla, Lou Rowe, I mean, Dana Dingle. It was awesome. And, you know, NBA basketball player was roaming around Amherst, Massachusetts. If you've been there, it's like seeing a unicorn run around. It just wasn't supposed to happen. So that's my squad. You know, I always go down with them because it was a great moment in my life. And it's why I decided to do this for a living. Makes
sense, man. When you grow up there and that's what you're watching all the time, and then you capture that lightning in a bottle like they were able to with Camby and those guys, man, it's just, yeah, I can only imagine seeing a program that you never imagined was going to be able to go to those heights to be able to see that. I'm sure it was exciting. Kimani, what about you, man?
Yeah, for me, it's got to be the Fab Five. You know, I want to say like 91, 92. You know, the impact that they had on basketball culture, you know, at that point in time was amazing, right? You know, with the baggy shorts and the black socks and the Hirachis, and, you know, they just brought a hip hop culture to college basketball, which was awesome to see. You know, I was a high school junior, a senior maybe, and just to see dudes that look like, you know, your friends from the neighborhood competing at a crazy high level, making 2 national championship games and you know, just kind of changed the game forever. You know, for me, that was big.
People forget that, you know, now we kind of take for granted the impact that freshmen have in college basketball. But then, I mean, that was completely and utterly unheard of. I mean, those guys, what they did, not only from a basketball standpoint, but like what you said, just in terms of the fashion. I know I was walking around campus in my Hirachis for sure. You know, and the idea of putting on a pair of black socks prior to the Fab Five. I mean, that just, you know, maybe I wear my tube socks with the 3 rings, but I wasn't. You certainly wouldn't put on any black socks. Let's put it that way. That did not exist pre Fab Five. There's no question about that.
And it was good, Mike. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, I mean, you know, going toe to toe with Duke off a national championship. You know.
Yep.
They just competed at a high level, beating Ohio State in the Final Four, like the big time game, Jimmy Jackson, and, you know, just to watch those guys play as a young player was exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact, it's just amazing when you think about that class and just how well they all fit together. I mean, just positionally, and, you know, I mean, you talk about capturing the moment with those 5 guys and just each one of them filling their role. And, you know, I know there was a little bit of a disconnect between Jalen Rose and the rest of those guys and Weber. And it seems like maybe, I guess I heard that maybe they're coming back together a little bit and bringing C-Webb back into the fold, which obviously you like to see because of everything that those guys went through and growing up together and then playing at Michigan and, you know, the pro careers, obviously that, you know, Juwan Howard and Jalen Rose and C-Webb had. It's just, you know, you like to see that all come together. my own personal favorite, I got two. I loved the Jordan freshman year championship team with, James Worthy and Perkins and Jimmy Black and Matt Doherty. For whatever reason, I kind of fell in love with Carolina blue a year or two before that when I was like 9, 10 years old. And then Jordan just pushed me over the top to become a Carolina guy. And then I always loved the Phi Slamma Jamma Houston Cougars first name on the back of the jersey. You see Akeem on the back of that jersey. You see, you had Mr. Mean, Larry Mishaw, and Drexler, and I mean, just that team. When you look back at the talent on that team, the fact that Valvano's NC State team had a ton of talent too. When you look at the pros that came off of that team, and the careers that that Thurl Bailey had in the NBA and whatever, but still that Houston team was just, when they were at their peak and running up and down the floor, they were a lot of fun. Jason, what about you, man? We got to get you in here.
So I think I have to go with my cop-out answer, and that is I didn't watch much college basketball when I was a kid, just because my dad wasn't really into it. What we were into doing was watching the old he had taped a bunch of Jordan UNC games, and that was obviously before YouTube. So there were people that had never got to watch him play. And luckily my dad had decided, for whatever godforsaken reason, to pull out the VCR and record those games. So like I would watch them with him. And so obviously I became a UNC fan as well. Obviously it was a little bit, it was past when he was playing college basketball, but I actually think back to like, and it's not obviously as old, but like what really got me back into college basketball was Aaron Kraft at Ohio State. And I don't know why, but Aaron Kraft just played a way that for me was like, you knew he was never going to make it in the NBA, but he just put it all on the floor. He was kind of the poor man's Matthew Dellavedova, in my opinion. Like he was diving on the floor, getting loose balls. I mean, he's what rejuvenated me getting back into college basketball. Him and they did a time with Evan Turner and obviously Greg Oden. I feel bad for that guy, but he's always going to be up there with the whole who should have been picked first situation. Obviously, with him and Durant, and then obviously Jordan's situation. Who was picked before Jordan? Mike, you know this. I can't think about the top of my head.
Sam Bowie.
Okay, so it's
and Akeem. You can't argue with picking Akeem over that. You can't argue with picking Akeem over Jordan.
Come on,
what's that?
My dad had me in a Sam Bowie jersey back in the day.
Are you serious?
Oh,
no, man. Oh, that's rough.
Hey, if you got a picture of that, Dwayne, you got a picture that we can put that in the show notes.
That'll be good, man. We'll put that.
They had Clyde Drexler, man. They said they didn't need Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. Oops, that's oops. Might have been a mistake. As good as Clyde was.
I gotta tell you this, Mike. Though there's a great Bobby Knight line about when Houston drafted Hakeem over Jordan. I guess Houston, their thing was, hey, we need a center. Bobby Knight was like, all right, draft Michael Jordan, play him at center.
I remember you guys have probably seen the clip of, I think it's even before the 84 Olympics. I think it was like right after the Olympic trials of Bob Knight saying that this guy's going to be he's going to be the greatest player in the history of the game. And just going through, I've never seen anybody more competitive. I've never seen anybody who's a better athlete. And just, he went through this whole litany of things that just became what Jordan was. All right. So on that note, here's my last question.
I know what it's going to be.
I'm not going to ask you to give me the greatest player of all time, but give me your top three. Who are your top three guys? Put them in any order you want, unless you want to definitively tell me who the greatest player of all time is. Give me your top three of all time. Kimani, you go first, man.
I mean, it's hard to argue with, obviously Michael. It's hard to argue with Michael, Kobe, LeBron. I mean, Kareem. I mean, it's so hard. Three is tough.
Yeah.
Three is tough.
I hear you.
Well, give them the Mount Rushmore. We'll go for four. Kimani. So are those your four?
Yeah, no, for me, it's Kareem, it's LeBron, it's Kobe, Michael Jordan. Bird was a great player. I mean, there's so many great players, man.
Yeah.
Oscar Robinson. You know what I mean? Like it's
I wish there was more. I wish there was more film of those old guys. I'll share mine in a second. I got an old guy in there that the film that you watch of this guy is just incredible. Dwayne, who's your top three?
Ooh, I'm gonna go Michael, LeBron. I'm gonna put Magic in there.
Yeah, Magic. Yeah, you can't forget.
Absolutely. And that's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I mean, I'm gonna put Larry Bird in there. And you know what's hard? This is crazy. This is gonna sound insane, right? But like and he's not in the top 5, not in the top 10. But I think Kevin Garnett like redefined like the modern era of basketball. Like because he could switch, he was athletic, just for like the space that I'm in my life.
And his trash talking.
Yeah.
And coming out of high school. I mean,
I think he has a bigger impact on the modern game right now than people realize. Because he didn't have he couldn't shoot it like guys shoot it now, but he could handle it and he could step out, and he made that okay because he could guard.
Well,
and
in a different era.
Yeah,
he'd shoot it today if he was playing today.
He's got.
No. His mechanics were horrendous, but he kind of he put a threat to like Tim Duncan and all those guys because he could play so different, especially on both sides of the ball. Like he's a guy that like if you put it in a different time window, he's the guy that like people forget about. But he's not top 5. No way.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I'm not.
Yeah.
All right, Jay, go ahead, man.
I hate Jordan, LeBron, and I'm going a little left field on this one. I have to put Wilt in there, and here's why. I mean, you just saw him; he was a freak of nature, and obviously, I who knows how he would play in today's game. I still think he would play pretty darn good, but they didn't make players like him back then, and maybe that's when you see the videos, like the random videos you can find on YouTube, if you go in like deep dive and you just see him, he looks literally like a tree next to all the people that he's playing against, but he still scored 100 points in a game.
How many rings?
Two.
Yeah.
2.
Not enough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Russell.
Yeah. So here's mine. So I'm a Wilt guy too. And I'm a Wilt guy despite the fact that I think, Kimani, you bring up a great point, because when we evaluate the greatest players of all time, and when you think about the argument that gets raised between Jordan and LeBron, right? The argument is Michael's 6-0 in the finals, LeBron's 4-6, and that 6-0 record that Michael has is unimpeachable, and that's the argument that I use when I have these discussions with people who want to tell me that LeBron's better than Jordan. And I don't know, if you live through Michael Jordan, I don't know how you think anybody at his peak is better. Now, LeBron might end up having a better career when you look at, he may end up being the all-time leading scorer in the league. Just the career records he's going to put up are incredible. But with Wilt, I look at it sort of the opposite way. And it's hard, Kimani, to your point, to say that I'd pick Wilt over Russell, because Russell was such a winner. And you look at 11 titles in 13 years, and then he did it as a player coach and all those things. And then you just look at some of the statistics that Wilt put up. And I think when I think about Wilt, the thing that I think about, and Jason kind of alluded to it, I think if you took Wilt Chamberlain if you took 1962 Wilt Chamberlain, and you didn't even, I'm not saying bring him into today's modern training and nutrition and all these things. I think if you just took 1962 Wilt Chamberlain, you threw him in a time machine, and you put him in the NBA today, he would probably translate better than any player from back in that era, just because you watch his speed and quickness and size and all those things. I just think he translates to the game. And then you look at his, again, you look at the statistics and all those things, and I know pace of play was different and whatever. But so despite I almost go against my own sentiments of what basketball is when I think of Wilt, just because the statistics are so crazy. So my top 4 would be Jordan, LeBron, Wilt, and then my 4th guy, I think I go with Dwayne. I think I go Magic Johnson. When you think about Magic being 19 and what he did in that finals against the Lakers when Kareem went out, and beat the Sixers and, with Dr. J and that whole crew. You can't go, but it's tough, man. It's really, really tough. I think to try to cut it down to 4.
Impossible.
Impossible. I think maybe you could probably go like the top 8 and feel pretty secure that you got the right 8, but to get 4 and eliminate, you think about all the great centers. Jason and I talked about this before. You think about how the center, at least the traditional center, has kind of been marginalized. And yet if you look at the history of the game, the top 10 players, 5 of them probably
I think we had 7 when we did our list originally, Mike.
Out of
6 or 7.
Yeah, out of the top 15. You think about Wilt, Kareem,
Got to be in there.
Shaq, right? Shaq's got to be in the top. Yeah, he's got to be in the top 10.
Can't forget about Shaq.
And he's just. Shaq is.
Hey,
right? Hakeem's in there.
Hey,
David
Giannis looked
Robinson's,
like Shaq tonight from the free throw line, guys.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He's got to figure that out, man. He's got to figure it out.
Bucks are in trouble, and that's operating at a high level right now.
They are
without Harden too. So yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's all. That's
all
good.
NBA takes.
That's it. All right. Well, fellas, we are approaching an hour and a half. We are approaching 12:36 a.m. I cannot thank you guys enough for jumping out with us, Dwayne. Obviously, thanks again as always for allowing us the access to you and your program. And it continues to be a lot of fun to be able to follow and learn more about you each time you jump on. We learn more. And Kimani, pleasure to have you join us. I can see here the affection that the two of you have for one another and just the relationship that you guys have built. It's clear that each of you is the other's biggest advocate. And as we all know, anybody who has a best friend, anybody who has somebody who has their back under any circumstance, you know how valuable that is, both in your personal life and your professional life. So I thank both of you guys for joining us. Really, really do appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.